Well, I want to start out with a little story because I'm kind of a traveler at heart and I love telling stories. A few years back, I took a little trip over to Greece and Turkey. And when I was in Istanbul, Turkey, there's this really, really awesome place called the Grand Bazaar. And I got to tell you, if ever a place was named appropriately, this was it. Because it is really grand, and I got to tell you, it is bizarre. There's something like 4,000 shops all under one roof. If you want it, they got it. If you don't want it, they still got it. There's something like 50 streets, alleyways meandering through this building all under one roof. But the most amazing thing about the Grand Bazaar, well, these streets, I mean, you had to see these streets by them. They were kind of like this. You know, those of you who live here in Arizona, you know what it's like with the Arizona highway engineers, some of the things they design? Well, you can imagine that, what it's like a project built the morning after a Cinco de Mayo party. I mean, there was no logic or rhyme to some of these traffic patterns. But to me, the part that I found by far the most interesting about the Grand Bazaar were the merchants, the vendors and their kiosks. I kind of called them the Young Turks. Because what was interesting about them is they all spoke 8 or 9 different languages. And they had all of the nuances down pat. So if they were talking with, say, Arabs, then it was all about birds of paradise and 1,000 pardons and all that flamboyant display. If they were talking to Germans, then it was just the facts. Yeah, lots of details, no embellishment. Now, if they were talking to the Spaniards or Italian visitors, then they were just flailing their hands in the air and their voices were rising and falling. If they were talking to Japanese, then it was very courteous and ceremonial bowing and exchanging of business cards with 2 hands, of course. Now, I don't know how they did it, but they spotted me a mile away. I was probably walking up 50, 100 feet away. And it was, "Hey, buddy, what's up, dude? Come here." I looked behind me. There must have been this huge sign that said, "American, Yank, American." But there wasn't. Somehow they knew. But, I got to asking one of these guys because I was so curious. I said, "Where did you learn your English from?" And this guy just kind of grinned, and he did this number. And he pulls back this curtain that separates the front of his kiosk from a little work booth back behind him. And there up in the corner was a 13-inch black and white TV, and it was just showing reruns of Friends and Seinfeld and CSI. Hey, you know, we all have our teachers, and who am I to question another man's learning experience? But as I reflected upon that encounter with all of these young Turks, this really profound thought hit me. At least it's profound for me. What struck me is that these guys and gals were already masters of globalization, even though most of them have never left Turkey, Istanbul, Turkey. And the reason I say that is because they knew that everything is or has a market, and they knew how to get that market. Well, as I encountered more of these experiences, it really dawned on me that people going into business and starting new careers in the early 21st century, we really are living in a new world. And it's a world where not only are we being surrounded by global partners, it's a world where, here's how I describe it. Again, I call it the global office, the global marketplace. It's kind of a metaphor, right? But this office, or it's already here now, whether we like it or not, or whether we're even aware of it. I don't care if you're going to go halfway around the world and work for an international company, or if you're going to walk across the street into a factory in your hometown, you are in a global market. Furthermore, this market is going to increasingly impact all of our relationships, business, social, travel, and so forth. The world is shrinking at an accelerating rate, it seems. And finally, that basically our ability as business people and launching new careers, Our success, however we define success, it might be money, it might be satisfaction of job, it might be seeing a company grow. It's going to directly depend on how aware, how informed, and how connected we are to these other people. You don't have to like them necessarily. You don't have to do business with them, but we got to know what they're all about. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk a little bit about what is globalization. We're going to kind of demystify it and put it in terms that business people and career seekers can identify with. We're going to talk about how it will affect you as a business person. We're going to talk a little bit about meeting the folks I call the new neighbors. These are global competitors, and they're possibly global allies. What are they up to? You're going to be amazed what some of these countries are doing. We're going to talk about tricks and steps to how do you master this global office where everybody communicates and thinks in different ways. We're going to talk about a little unique challenge that we as Americans have in terms of preparing to enter that strange new world of commerce. And then finally, I'm going to give you some steps, some ideas about things you can do to really help launch a successful career in your business dealings in this global office. Okay, let's talk a little bit about globalization. I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. Question for you. I'm just curious. How many of you hear the term globalization, consider it mostly good? Okay. Maybe a third or a fourth room. How many of you would consider globalization mostly bad? Based upon your definition. Okay? How many think it's a little bit of both? It could be good and bad. Well, that's a bigger number. Hey, you guys are progressive marketing students. I would expect that informed idea. How many have no clue and don't have an opinion? All right. We're going to try and see if we can crystallize that thinking a little bit more today. Well, what's happening? What's happening with globalization simply is that as the world is shrinking, it's creating incredibly powerful opportunities, but incredible challenges for